Hey guys, I'm here in Paris with my good friend Lorenzo Cortes, and we're gonna play some swing music for you and talk a little bit. Let's do this thing.
Yes.
Yeah, man. In case you don't know, Lorenzo Cortes has a lesson on DC Music School about his own style, which is heavily influenced by Charlie Christian, Allan, and a lot of the players from the late 30s, early 40s swing era. And he's someone you should check out because, in my opinion, he's one of the top experts on the styles of Allan and Charlie Christian, alongside Jonathan Stout, and whom I've interviewed on this channel as well. And what is very interesting is that even though they're both influenced by these two great guitar players, I wouldn't consider them clones of those guitar players, and they've taken the elements of those players and did their own thing with it. So thank you so much for doing this with me, Lorenzo.
Thank you, Dennis. I'm really happy to be here, and thanks.
Yeah, so please buy those lessons.
Yes,
that's it.
buy them.
We're done. No, I'm kidding. No, if you check out the videos, he's going to talk about his background and everything. So I thought we'd talk about a few, different topics here. Can you tell us about why you moved to Paris to play this music instead of staying? He's from Colombia, by the way.
I am. I'm from Bogota, and I started playing this music when I was living in Barcelona. That's where I started, and I started the first band in Colombia when I moved back there. The first swing band in Colombia. And we played a lot together with that band. We did a lot of concerts, festivals, and stuff. And then at some point, I was feeling that I was a bit stuck, and I needed new inspirations and motivation. And I knew that Paris was a very active city in terms of jazz, and that the scene here was really, really nice. So that's one of the reasons that made me move here. Also, that's mainly the reason that made me move here.
So it seems that Paris is one of the few cities, maybe in the whole world, there's New York as well and other places, where you have lots of different styles of older jazz.
Yes.
So is that really why?
That is true, and that's something that's really exciting. There are many bands doing different periods of early jazz. So you can find people that specialize more into the 1920s or 1930s. I'm a bit more in the late 30s, and that's really cool because you get to hear all these great musicians all the time, and you learn a lot from them. It's cool also because we share a lot, even if we may play different styles, we share, and we spend time together, we all play. There are so many jam sessions and hangs, and that's really cool.
Just last week we had that 2 a.m. jam or something.
Exactly.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Let's watch a little clip of that.
I'm not playing solos. Four pitches. Four pitches.
So actually, that day that we had that late night jam, I was playing at the Saint Pomplin with Duved. But
Yes.
on the way, I saw you guys play.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you told me.
And so it's very interesting that you're able to find musicians, like not just guitar players, but like bass players, drummers, everything to play this style of music. Has that allowed you to grow significantly with playing this style of music? To be able to find such musicians who play the same style, like the sax player as well, like compared to when you were maybe stuck in Colombia.
Yes.
No one else to play in that style with, and you guys can do actually a kind of project in that style.
Well, I feel like there's more and more people that are interested in all those styles, and fortunately, I have some very good friends that are really good musicians that are really interested in the same kind of music that I like. So that's really, really, well, something that is inspiring because then you can dream of projects that may come true, and you live them, in fact. And what's also very nice is that, well, since this music is a bit, how to say, it's not always easy to find new inspirations in the music. Once you've like listened to most of the very important guitarists, then who else do you listen to? But having more people doing the research and doing it with love makes you, well, also find a lot of new great musicians that you had never heard of or you had never paid attention to. And that's also something that's really cool to just, sit all together and listen to music and compare styles and talk about all these things that makes really your vision of things grow a lot.
Speaking of which, so this kind of music, at least right now, it's not really possible to study this in an academy or a musical. You have to learn on your own, as we said in the video, in previous videos. So when you guys rehearse, like with your project, how do you discuss like how the certain things should be, like the sound of the accompaniment or things like that? I know like for the bass playing, you want it to be more a specific way. How do you guys discuss this kind of stuff?
Well, in the project that I lead, that's a sextet we have, it's called Swing to Bop. Well, it has more been me who has had like the ideas of the aesthetics that we're looking for, and we listen to a lot of music when we rehearse, and we try to see what we're doing that works well, what we can find in the music that we are not doing right. We also often play over recordings.
Oh.
That's something that I've done a lot, and I really enjoy it. I try to put myself in a position in which I try to feel as if I was sitting in the room with the guys. So I try to really find the volume, the perfect volume between what I'm doing and what I'm hearing, and try to see how what I do affects, the moment. And we sometimes do that together. We, for example, play 4 measures each when we are rehearsing with the rhythm section. We will play 4 measures each over the recordings. That's something that really can really like help you understand the feel, which is a very, there are many different feels, and the way each rhythm section played back in the days is different, but there are some certain things that are common, and I try to find the ones that I like the most, and we play over that, and we try to, focus a lot and listen a lot. We also do, for example, 4 measures, one of the members of the band, then 4 measures of just listening. Then someone else comes in, so the drums will play 4 measures, we will listen to 4 measures of the recording, then the bass will come in, and that makes you like be very aware of of the rhythmical construction of the recording of the music that you're listening to.
Speaking of which, so like you said, there's time fields and everything like that. And one thing that I noticed, because I also play like straight ahead jazz or whatever, what you would call it nowadays, it seems like in straight ahead jazz, like drummers and bass players have a little bit more creative freedom in many ways. But I think in swing music, I don't know if you agree, that it's more, you have to be more careful about what you are doing, not to go crazy with drum fills or bass tricks or whatever. It seems in the recordings, it's more specific. How do you feel about that?
I think it's very true, and I think that's one of the things that, you know, it's really hard to find drummers that know this style well.
Exactly, yes.
It's really hard to find
know.
bassists. Maybe there are a bit more bassists, but drummers are really, really hard to find. And I think it's because somehow, if you see it from the perspective of someone who's learning, maybe this music may look a bit simpler and not as, I don't know if sophisticated is a word, but less, you know, there are less fireworks in
Yeah.
general. So I think that, but then when you play this music, I feel like the drummer can enjoy a lot of things that you cannot enjoy in the other contexts.
That's true.
And making, like, you know, making it swing and groove, which is the main job of the drummer. I mean, in every music, but particularly in this music, you have four persons working together for the beat, which is not often the case in more modern contexts.
Yeah.
So understanding how many different possibilities there are and how many different ways there are to do that job. And in reality, there is a very, very wide palette
Yeah.
of ways of doing it, and it's almost endless, in fact. And if you listen to Chick Webb or to Joe Jones, and then to Zooty Singleton, or to all the big, big names, big drummers, each one has a very different way of doing things. So I think that you can be have a very personal way of playing while staying in the style. So yeah, drummers should not go too crazy, but they really can have a very distinctive and personal voice. That's what I think.
Yeah, it's very interesting because it's just also what you're just saying. It reminds me of when I went to a straight ahead jam session once, and someone wanted to play a swing song, but the drummer. It's funny because, you know, you go to music school, you learn bebop, and when the foundation is swing.
Yeah.
But they have absolutely no idea how to play
Oh yeah.
swing, and it's kind of weird. But if you look at the jazz history, all the people who are from the bebop era, they came from the swing era, so it's kind of weird that.
Well, and if you listen to the early bebop recordings, you still have the same feel.
Exactly.
You know? You really feel that it's
coming from there.
exactly, totally. And if you listen to all those first Charlie Parker recordings, I always had the feeling of it being somehow like Lester Young, but like the long notes are filled with chromatisms and stuff. But he's attacking the same points of the measure, and his accents are pretty much or very similar to Lester. Or so. In fact, yes, there is more sophistication from a harmonic standpoint, but the main rhythmical construction and melodic construction remains pretty similar.
Yeah, definitely. And you were talking earlier about, okay, it's quote unquote a little bit more strict, but everyone still has their voice. They can find their own voice, and that's something I noticed because, like I said, in my opinion, anyway. If you guys know others, let me know. But you and Jonathan Stout are probably the two biggest experts on the planet on the styles of Charlie Christian and Allan Roos. And one thing, having worked with both of you, you guys took the same ideas but went in completely different directions. Like, can you talk a little bit about that? Like, how important was it for you to find your own style within something like this?
Well, you know, I think there's something that's really interesting also. It's that when you listen to, I started modern jazz, and that's what I did for most of my life. I started doing swing maybe 7 or 8 years ago. It was a big revelation, an epiphany almost, and my entire life changed. But something that I always found so beautiful is that when you pick maybe 5 guitarists from that era, maybe they will live 50 miles away from one from another, but their styles are so unique and so different, and that's so well. This things have changed so much that nowadays you can really listen to a guy from Stockholm and a guy from Colombia and another guy from, and you will never recognize where they come from because things are very homogeneous and standardized. And what happened then? You know, like at some point in 2 blocks, people will play completely different. But what was your question again?
How about just like finding your own style within a style where people assume there is not many creativity?
Yep. Well, I have transcribed a lot of music, but I've always tried to understand the mechanisms behind the music rather than playing licks. And I spend, when I take the guitar, what I do the most is like taking one standard and playing for hours over it, trying to find new ideas, new ways of playing the same things. Finding a style is, well, I think it's something that will eventually come if you spend enough time understanding what you want to do and the music that you like, or how does the music that you like sound in your head.
And one thing, okay, so if you check out the courses on DC Music School, you'll hear him playing electric style in the style of Charlie Christian and his contemporaries, but also in the style of Allan Roos. And one thing that I noticed in your playing, okay, you've copied the vocabulary and all that stuff, but I've also noticed that you have a, speaking of which, when we were saying earlier that you and Jonathan Snow went in your own directions, you do something that's very consistent in your phrasing. Like you like to accent beat 4.
Yeah.
How much did you work on that, or like is that something that came automatically?
Well, I don't only listen to jazz. I listen to a lot of different kinds of music. I only play jazz, but I think that has come from. I mean, when you listen to Lester Young with Count Basie and with the Count Basie Orchestra, that beat 4 is everywhere. I mean, it's so important. Even in the earlier days, the 4 has always been there, and that's something that I feel is really important in that language. And if you listen to other styles, I mean, I feel like, for example, if you listen to Latin music, there are claves that are really clear, and in jazz there are some claves that are not as explicit as they are in other musics, but they exist. I do feel that they exist, and I'm always very worried about rhythm. I think it's really, you can really have a very personal way of playing if you understand rhythm well, and if you have your own rhythmic ideas. I guess that came naturally, and you know, I've practiced starting the phrases in every beat of the measure, or ending them in every bit of the measure, or just having the highest note at some point of the measure, and that kind of stuff. That's something I've done quite a lot, and that has, well, maybe that comes from there. I don't know. I just feel it very natural,
Cool.
in fact.
Well, you do it a lot, I noticed.
Yes, I do.
For those of you who don't understand what I'm talking about, B4, like let's say you have 1 bar of A flat, 1 bar of D flat 7. He will play the D flat 7 on the A flat on B4 to just announce something.
Yep.
So you should check out the lessons for that.
Yes.
Obviously, in case you guys don't know, Lorenzo lives in Paris, but he also speaks French. How much did that help for you to be living here, to be able to actually speak the language here, to communicate with people? Did you learn French before or after?
I did. I lived in Corsica when I was a kid. That's where I learned French. Well, I have friends that only speak English that live here.
Okay,
and
cool.
They, well, you know, Duvet, for example.
He speaks French too, though.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
he
does.
fakes French.
He lies.
Oh,
He
well,
lies.
Okay,
He
okay.
speaks very good
He
French.
does. He does. That's true. It does help, but
Just for people who might want to come to Paris to do this stuff, like what kind of advice would you give?
I think you can come if you speak any language. I mean,
Okay.
as long as, you know, if you're a kind person, it will be easy for you to just get along well with people. But yeah, speaking French can help you to have deeper relationships with people. But you can also do your life in English easily and do everything you need and survive in English.
If you say that, that's gonna piss off a lot of French people.
Oh là là.
I know.
Oh là là. Oh mon Dieu.
Je sais. All right, one last question. How important is it for you to, how do you say, associate the style of music that you play to kind of the history or the culture where it's coming from?
Well, I think that, as I said before, I like a lot of different styles of music. I like a lot of folkloric music from all around the world. And when you listen to, for example, music from Mongolia, sometimes you hear the music copying a horse galloping. Or when you listen to music from Colombia, for example, you can hear the instruments doing the sound of the birds, or the percussion doing the sounds of the trees and the leaves when there is a storm. And I've always found that I found it really fascinating. I think that jazz in the 1930s was also copying, maybe translating into music, all of the sounds and maybe the cities, or these people were just translating into sound their experience, their life experience, their beliefs, their gods, all of their world, in fact. So something that I try to do I'm trying to imagine how I can translate my reality into the music that I do. I want to do it through the filter of the 1930s jazz, but I feel like it's possible to add something that's contemporary without taking into account maybe the history of jazz since the 1930s. Maybe you can find a way of understanding that music really well, and then adding your own little spices here and there to make it your own and to talk about your reality and the reality that you see. So that's one of my quests, and it's one of the things that I'm trying to do.
Well, that's a very interesting point, because in those days they weren't trying to follow rules; they were just doing what they were doing.
Totally, and it was completely new, in fact, and everything was very exciting because of that. And I feel like all the big artists, if you think of Frida Kahlo, for example, she in her her palette of colors, you can really identify a lot of the colors that you will see if you ever go to Mexico or to the desert, or that's really clear in here. And even not very long ago, I was eating at some taco place with my Russian friend. It was his first time almost eating this food, and we just realized that even the food looks and has those colors. He was the one that made me think of Frida Kahlo, in fact. He told me, well, it's the same colors and the same palettes so everything's really related, in fact. And I think that every cultural expression should have that in order to be
In touch.
Yes, and very authentic and really, talk about something deep.
That's very deep, indeed. Well, thank you for doing this. Shall we just play one last song?
Yes, let's do it.
Qu'est-ce qu'on fait?
Allez.
Parlons, hein. Toi, cours.
Je te passe une grille ou pas? Ça
Non,
fait
mais
chier?
si tu peux m'enseigner vite fait.
Donc, it only happens once. Do majeur. Commençons la bémol. 1, 2, 3. 6, 7. 1 et 1, 7. 4 mineur. Mi mineur. La 7. Le 7. Et puis sol. Deuxième main, il est presque pareil.
Let's try once. Fais juste vite fait pour juste voir les accords. Just to get the chords. Vite.
That's it. So,
I think I got it.
what?
Yeah, man. Check out In the Style of Lorenzo Cortes, DC Music School. Like, subscribe, leave a comment.